A very good evening. Many thanks for joining us on the news on NTA International. I am Ifoma Ojinta. But first, the highlights. Xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa. President Buhari says Nigeria will not abdicate her responsibility. Inspector General of Police orders watertight security around embassies, foreign mission and businesses in Nigeria. Federal government to collaborate with the Nigerian Society of Engineers in the task of providing quality infrastructure. And now the news in details. The federal government is reassuring the nation that it will not abdicate its responsibility at adequately protecting Nigerians and their legitimate economic interests anywhere in the world. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey, stated this while briefing journalists after an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari on the reported xenophobic attacks against Nigerians in South Africa.
What has happened in South Africa is totally unacceptable. We will not accept it, and as I said earlier, enough is enough, and we're not going to come back to this. We're going to have to address it once and for all this time. So this is a position of the government that we're going to draw a red line here, and whatever measure that needs to be taken to ensure the safety of Nigerians in South Africa, we will take. And we have a very clear idea of what we want to achieve, and the Special Envoy has very clear directives from Mr. President about the commitments and guarantees that we expect from the South African government.
The minister described as unfortunate and counterproductive distorted reports being circulated on the development in South Africa, which he says has impacted on Nigeria's response to the situation.
And the Consul General in South Africa is that no Nigerian life has been lost during these crises. And I think that's very important, because on social media, there's a lot of stories going around, Nigerians being killed, jumping off buildings, and being burnt. This is not the case. What we know that premises, shops of Nigerians have been looted and properties destroyed.
Mr. Onyama stepping down of Nigeria's participation at the World Economic Forum in Cape Town, the recall of the nation's High Commissioner to South Africa, as well as the demand of full compensation on losses suffered by Nigerians in that country. President Buhari, he however says, is worried over the acts of vandalism being taken in Nigeria in retaliation to the happenings in South Africa.
And the government believes that we have to take the moral high ground on this matter. We here in Nigeria must not fall into the temptation of also resorting to the acts that we are condemning in others. People that will suffer from those acts of vandalism and aggression are not South Africans or anyone else, but they are Nigerians. The government is acting. We cannot state everything and put everything in the public domain with regards to what we are doing, obviously, but want to assure all Nigerians that this government is determined that the red line has been drawn and that we will not give in on this occasion, and that the South African government has to assume its responsibilities and do the right thing. And we're going to consider other options to ensure that the message gets across to the government of South Africa. It's not a question of weakness or anything of the sort. We have to move, but we have to move decisively.
He said on the return of the special envoy, whose identity is to be made public, the federal government will assess the report, look at all available options and take appropriate measures towards putting a stop to the attacks against Nigerians in South Africa. Meanwhile, the federal government has advised Nigerians in South Africa to avoid high-risk and volatile areas in that country following renewed xenophobic attacks on foreign nationals until the situation is brought under control. A statement by Ferdinand Nwoye, spokesperson of the Foreign Affairs Minister, the federal government explained that the government is seriously concerned by the tension in South Africa and is therefore engaging relevant authorities to ensure definite measures are taken. The statement commended South African police for arresting perpetrators, calling for immediate prosecution. Similarly, the FCT Minister, Mohammed Musa Bello, has called on residents of the Federal Capital Territory, especially students and youths, not to carry out retaliatory attacks on South African nationals and businesses and business interests in the FCT over the recent xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in that country. A statement by Chief Press Secretary to the Minister, Anthony Oguleye, states that the federal government was already exploring diplomatic channels to address the issue. He says South African businesses in the FCT are in partnership with Nigerian investors and are contributing to the economic development of the territory. In the meantime, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has ordered watertight security around embassies, foreign missions, foreigners and their businesses within the country. This order is against the backdrop of the unfortunate attack on ShopRite's outlets in Lekki area of Lagos State on 3rd September 2019 by some miscreants who attacked and looted the malls under the pretext of protesting against the incessant xenophobic attacks in South Africa. To this end, all Zonal Assistant Inspector General of Police and Commissioners of Police across the Federation have been placed on red alert to ensure no similar violence is replicated within the country. The IGP condemns the violent attacks and notes that 3 police officers were seriously injured and a police operational vehicle set ablaze. He also notes that 125 suspects have been arrested in connection with the incident, while a good number of looted valuables have been recovered by the police. Meanwhile, the force has commenced investigations and profiling of the arrested suspects with a view to establishing their connection with the stealing, malicious damage, arson and disturbance of public peace on the day of the incident. The federal government is to collaborate more effectively with the Nigerian Society of Engineers in the task of bequeathing adequate quality and accessible infrastructure towards achieving a prosperous future for the country. President Muhammadu Buhari, who said this while granting audience to the Executive Council members of the society, maintains that Nigeria's problems require uniquely Nigerian solutions. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Over the years, Nigerian engineers have been recognized globally for carrying out amazing and impactful projects. This is not the case here at home.
For decades, President Muhammadu Buhari said the enabling environment was simply not provided for the nation's innovative and creative professionals to flourish and showcase the country as an engineering hub.
Many nations we look up to are those with adequate and accessible infrastructure, power and water resources. They achieved this by embracing engineering and, of course, engineers.
In Nigeria, he, however, laments the infrastructure deficit continued to grow and quality remains on the decline despite the engineers and technicians produced in their numbers by the various academic and vocational institutions. The president said to reverse this trend, his administration introduced executive orders and other policy initiatives aimed at creating the enabling environment for engineers to succeed and thrive. Several infrastructure development and rehabilitation projects have also been embarked upon, in addition to prioritizing local content in the nation's procurement process.
I am therefore pleased to hear that you are seeing and feeling the impact of these policies. I will ask that you continue to support the government at all levels so that we can collectively work to build a more prosperous society. I will look forward to our continued partnership as we transform Nigeria into the nation of our dreams.
The president of the Council of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Adekunle Mokolu, had told the president that they were in the State House to formally thank him for the enormous work being done towards putting Nigeria back on the path of development. The council is particularly delighted over the government's recognition of the importance of engineers to the advancement of the Nigerian nation, promising that its members will never be disappointing.
Given our training and experiences on cost and appraising, we urge Mr. President, sir, to involve the Nigerian Society of Engineers at the conceptual and initial stages of the processes for new engineering projects, particularly the one tied to loans. We can add value to ensuring stress-free repayment, increasing local capacity for those skills and the knowledge and materials required for delivery. By so doing, we can guarantee, Mr. President, sir, that Nigeria will be in a position to give loans to other countries that may need our assistance in the future. In order to prove our professional proficiency, we humbly request you, sir, to assign to members of the Nigerian Society of Engineers 1 or 2 engineering projects as a challenge to provide solutions in planning, design, and construction.
With enormous strength of membership and a network of 75 branches across Nigeria and another 2 in the diaspora, harnessing the intellectual resources of the nation's engineers abroad, the Council believes that its members have much more to offer in driving the next level agenda for sustainable economic and infrastructure development. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Still from the presidency, President Muhammadu Buhari has described the Secretary to the Federal Government, Mr. Boss Mustafa, as a hard-working and committed public officer. In a goodwill message signed by the Senior Special Advisor on Media to the President, Garba Shehu, to the SGF to mark his 63rd birthday anniversary, the President said he is proud of his amazing zeal and commitment to duty and passion for Nigeria's progress. According to the President, Boss Mustafa is a team leader who inspires others in addition to his humility, which are essential ingredients of leadership. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will be participating in the 2019 African Green Revolution Forum, AGRF, in Accra, Ghana, themed Grow Digital, leveraging digital transformation to drive sustainable food systems in Africa. The forum, which opened on the 3rd of September, will be taking place through the 6th of September 2019 at the Accra International Conference Center. A release by Laolu Akonde, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Publicity, Office of the states that the conference presents a premier platform for African and global leaders from both the public and private sectors to advance policies, programs and investments, as well as harnessing agriculture in ensuring food security, increasing income and promoting economic development in the continent. Vice President Osinbajo and other leaders at the forum will share their experiences in capturing the gains of the digital era to improve food systems, increase adaptation, and drive innovation to achieve the goals laid out in the Malabo Declaration of the African Union 2014 and the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs set by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 for the year 2030. Osinbajo departs Abuja today and is expected back tomorrow in the country. You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja. Stay tuned for more reports after this break.
Hey, you! And are you how they talk to? I sabi you now. It's in your mind, Abi. The person with them go help us. Baba Toro San Shangalo. Oga Lekuva, Mr. Sabi. And you don't think carry last for this one.
A spear into the top corner.
We sabi say Peking go crawl before in waka. So don't look, no help anybody. No dolly, no. So go for him. Go for football. Go for all Syria on the Liga Marches live. Go for Go TV Max.
Thanks for staying with us. In a bid to improve the country's budgetary system to engender sustainable economic growth, the National Assembly has initiated a dialogue session on national budget reform. This is to chart a roadmap towards effective planning and implementation of the 2020 Appropriations Bill. Kenneth Nanim reports.
The 9th National Assembly had resumed with a commitment to ensuring reforms of key sectors of the economy. Now, the attention is on the country's budgetary system. Heads of government agencies, parastatals, and experts in relevant sectors at this budget system reform roundtable are brainstorming, putting in perspective issues bordering on revenue mobilization, allocation, and expenditure plans, ensuring that the budget system is returned to the January to December fiscal year calendar with the year 2020 in focus.
The January to December calendar, is achievable, and then to bring every stakeholder on board to ensure that the observed lapses of the past are addressed with the new process.
These Nigerians entrusted with this all-important assignment are also collating ideas and views on how the country's annual budget could be adequately funded, seamlessly implemented, and properly monitored through improved citizens' participation.
Laws guiding public finance management, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and so on, including the Public Finance Management Control Act 1958, and the need for review of all these relevant laws have been discussed.
There were suggestions about what can be done to increase revenue. There were suggestions about what can be done to reduce expenditure.
With all the views aggregated here, it is believed that the 2020 Appropriations Bill will record great improvement in terms of planning and implementation, which will translate to more job creation, foreign direct investment, and economic stability in line with developmental policies of the federal government. Kenneth Nanim, NTA News.
Now, can the sacrifice of military operatives be appreciated enough? Should any expense be spared in celebrating their gallantry? Answers to these are contained in a book titled Acts of the Service Chiefs, written from the perspective of a journalist. Onange Fineface reports.
The Nigerian Armed Forces are saddled with the responsibility of protecting the territorial integrity of the nation against external aggression. How well have they fared? How best can they be supported to succeed? These are issues captured in a book titled Acts of the Service Chiefs.
He picked up a great deal about the concerns and problems of the military that drove the present service chiefs into redesigning their various traditions and practices to accommodate the opinions and viewpoints of the non-military stakeholders in the safeguarding of the Nigerian nation.
It is a 116-page book of 7 chapters that celebrates the bravery and sacrifices of military personnel to guarantee the security of citizens at all times while maintaining established ethical standards.
We have written not based on what they told us, not based on press releases. We have tried to analyze and digest what they are doing and then write our own.
And I've read that book and I think it's a great beginning. It can never be the end. There is still more to it, but at least it has opened our eyes to a lot of information.
The author of the book, Yochukwu Ofoka Yobolisa, was a defense correspondent and later served as editor of the Nigerian military magazine in Abuja. Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
Japanese ambassador to Nigeria, Yutaka Kikuta, says the relationship between his country and Nigeria is taking a new frontier and will give all the necessary support to Nigeria's youth for their development. The ambassador gave the insights during the reception for the 6th batch outgoing and returnees of African Business Education Initiative for Youth. Haman Jabani reports that the initiative is that of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA.
The African Business Education Abe initiative is Japanese government official development assistance that is to integrate young Africans with effective skills and expertise in various fields for Africa's industrialization. In the last 4 years has trained 65 Nigerians. Adedotun Ayo is the latest beneficiary of Abe initiative for master's degree in international development at International University of Japan that will run for 2 years.
Industrial cluster is one of the tools that NEBZA, Nigerian Export Processing Zones, use in developing the nation. And by so doing, by the time I learned the way the industrial cluster is being practiced in Japan, replicating the same thing in Nigeria will actually help Nigerian economy.
For the Japanese government, the relationship between Japan and Nigeria is taking a new dimension with the just concluded TCAT 7.
You are the pioneers, the foundational pilots. Japanese companies and private investors would be counted on as partners in their engagements in Africa, especially in Nigeria.
Through this program, I think the participant would think to become the more bridge between the two countries, and then they decide to stay in Japan.
49 participants have already completed their program that lasted between 2 to 3 years. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
Nigeria aims $2.2 billion investment in 6 key sectors under the country's economic growth plan. This is coming as the government plans to develop mechanism for monitoring of donor agencies' support program. Details of these with Musa Baba Aliyu.
Nigeria has realized $22.5 billion investment under the Economic Recovery Growth Focus Lab. The investment are in 6 key sectors, which include manufacturing, agriculture, processing, power, gas and transportation. The Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, Ifyong Essen, says 9 more sectors will be privatized this year.
The President told us that to be able to catalyze the investment and also bring economy to its path of growth, government budget of $1 needs to speak to private sector investment of $5. So the government budget is talking to $5 investment of the private sector.
And the federal government is to establish an agreeable process for the coordination and effective management of development assistance in the country. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning says the initiative will allow monitoring the performance of all international commitments in order to avoid duplication of efforts and ensure adequate distribution of resources across the country. And the Nigerian National Accreditation Service has entered into partnership with the United States International Development, USAID, on agribusiness and export opportunities. The Director General, Adam Sefa, says both parties will work closely, especially in the areas of policy frameworks, capacity building, and strengthening of the value chain opportunities for Nigeria economy.
African countries have been advised to embrace science and technology in all spheres if the continent is to be valuable in today's global economic realities. This echoed at a forum of academics drawn from 8 African universities who rubbed minds on how to harness Africa's potentials in science, technology and humanities for sustainable development. Justina Etim reports that recommendations will facilitate joint researches and curriculum development among African universities.
Africa for several decades has been associated with poverty, deprivation and stagnation, in the midst of enormous potential to radically transform the continent and its people. To change this narrative, academics from various parts of Africa are in this hall to brainstorm on how to showcase Africa's contribution to science and technology. Professor Ernest Asikong is a lecturer in the Microbiology Department, University of Calabar,
Environmentally, we are trained to reuse, to recycle, to reduce waste at any level so that no waste is wasted.
It takes time to develop the expertise to do something to impact upon the economy. But Nigeria cannot do otherwise. They have to invest in it.
The need to accord science and technology greater attention to facilitate discoveries and scientific breakthrough were also emphasized.
Any African society desirous of growth must, as a matter of urgent necessity, embrace the teaching of science and technology.
Africa has what it takes to build viable, resourceful, and sustainable academic institutions.
The consensus by these Africans seeking a path for Africa is that the establishment of African Continental Research Foundation that will generate money for Africans to tap into knowledge generation will go a long way to promote sustainable development in the continent. In Calabar, Justina Etam, NTA News.
Up next is a quick check on Thursday's weather prospects for Nigeria and some cities of the world. And that concludes the news on NTA International. At this time, we thank you for watching. I am Ifoma Ojinta.